Hi, folks. So I've been laid off now for 6 months, and I'm in sort of in interview hell. I can get interviews, which is great, but you never really know what's going to happen in an interview. And interviewing has changed since from the last time I was interviewing, which was over 12 years ago. So, 12 years ago. When I got the job that I was laid off from, I remember my interview with the hiring manager, and basically he just asked me, what I did at my last company. He asked me some of my skills. We talked a little bit about how my skills would apply to the new job, and that was it. And I get a call, I get an email like a week later saying, "You're hired." Well, that's not the case now. Um, the case now is they all want you to use the STAR method, which is basically they want you to tell stories. So the STAR method stands for situation, task, action, and result. So the recruiter gives you a situation. You tell them the task you had to perform, the task that you were given, the action that you took, and then the result that happened from it. So everything has a beginning and an end, and it's like this perfect little wrapped up story. The problem is you've got to have a story for each question they ask you. And so when I first started to interview 6 months ago, I was like, why are they asking me such stupid questions? I was getting questions like, tell me about a time you and your manager didn't get along. Tell me about a time when you had to make a split second decision, and what was the result from that. I also had questions like, tell me something about yourself that nobody knows, and just weird shit. I, and of course, I was totally unprepared for it. And I remember the first interview that I had after, being laid off, and it was with the same company that laid me off, which I was kind of upset about because I was like, my scorecards. You knew I was a great employee. I had great scorecards. I was only laid off because of a workforce reduction, and they should have just transferred me over to that department. They shouldn't put me through this stuff. But I guess since they lay off so many people all the time, that a lot of people want that position. So they put you through this stuff. But anyway, on the interview itself, I was supposed to interview with one lady, and she invited her whole team on the interview, the team that I would be working with, if I got the job. So here I am getting asked all these weird questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Because I didn't have stories ready for these questions. I didn't know that they would ask me such strange questions. And so um, the whole thing was embarrassing. I looked like a fool. I couldn't really answer questions. Questions like, tell me about a time you and your manager didn't get along. Well, I've always gotten along with my manager, you know. If I hadn't gotten along with my manager, I probably wouldn't have been there for 12 years, So, eh, and she was the one that asked me, tell me something about yourself that nobody else knows and stuff like that. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to make shit up. And that's what the STAR method to me is. You have to have an answer to each question, even if you've never really experienced it before. And I'm not a very good bullshitter, so um, it's been really really hard for me. I've had to really think about my past jobs and write down situations, get on Google and look up questions that they might ask for the STAR method. I've been on YouTube researching it and stuff and trying to come up with stories from my life, and um, not just from this job that I just got laid off from, but from previous jobs, something to fit the bill. And they can ask you anything, and it's just really, really hard. And I guess you get scored on the STAR method now, which is to me is just torture. The whole thing has been torture. Um, but that's not the only thing. I've had a recruiter from the same company call me. And first of all, she could barely speak English. I think she was from California. And so when I was talking to her on the phone, I kept saying, what, and then she was getting aggravated because I couldn't understand her, which it wasn't my fault that I couldn't understand her. It was her fault, and then when she was telling me about the position, because even though there was a job description that I applied for, the job descriptions are rarely accurate. And she was telling me about the position, and she told me that the position was a liaison type position. And I was like, oh, great, I can be a liaison. I mean, that she said it was really a liaison type position. So I got a second interview. And when I went on the second interview with the actual hiring manager, um, the hiring manager said, tell me what you know about this job. That was like the first question out of his mouth. And I said, oh, well, I know that it's a liaison type position. And then like he was like, no, no, that's not right. Who told you that? He's like, where did you get that? It's liaison type position. And I was like, well, that's what the recruiter told me, you know? And so that interview lasted about 15 minutes because he thought that if you don't know what you're applying for, why would he give you the time of day? you know? So that happened. And I also had a job interview for a 911 dispatcher position. First of all, I went and took a civil service test for the position, and I passed. But then I drive halfway across town, and I get to the job interview, and it's with four people. Um, and they asked me all sorts of questions that I understood why they asked them, but I wasn't quite prepared for some of them. Some of them were, I mean, I guess since it was a 911 dispatcher position, like one of the questions that they asked me if I had porn on the internet, um, if I had ever been convicted of a felony. But a lot of the questions that they asked me were like the same type of questions, like tell me about a time that you made a split second decision. Um, Tell me about a time that you didn't get along with a coworker. Tell me about a time that oh, tell me about a time that you improved a process. Uh, they were asking me all different questions, all different for people, and I felt like I was surrounded. This was an in-person interview. Most of my interviews have been on Zoom, but for the 911 dispatcher position, I had to go in person. And so, they were surrounding me at a desk, and I I was just like I kept thinking star method, star method. What story can I fit into this question? But I mean, overall, I didn't pass the interview, and sometimes I wonder if my age has an effect on people because I think that it does. I know that when I got laid off, they gave us a sheet of people who got laid off, like in our building, and in my group, there was only one person who was under 50. You know, and I know when I went for this 911 dispatcher position, um, I saw when I went to a meeting for it, and I saw the people that were also applying for the job, and they were really young. Um, so I don't know. I think that my age uh, affects a lot of uh, the way people perceive me, and they can see how old I am on Zoom, which So so far it's just been such a minefield. I posted another video about a bad experience I had with a 25-year-old hiring manager. Um, that was ridiculous. Um, I'm still going through my star method stories, and I'm trying to improve on my stories, but this whole interview process has been torture, and it's just been completely aggravating. and I feel like I'm being punished. Like, um, it's I never seem to have that hard of a problem on interviews before, but now they're just more. The questions are really weird, and they want stories for everything. You know, um, and I think that I used to be a graphic designer, and then I went into banking, so my experiences don't quite align. It's not like I've done one thing all my life, you know. Um, so I'm pulling stories from different types of work, and it's just really odd. Um, I have an interview next week. I'm trying to practice for, and I hope that this one works out. But I this the one I have next week is another one that's in person. So I'm gonna get my hair cut, shave, and try to make a great impression. And I'm gonna try to look younger than what I am. Um, but I don't. I just it's hard to have a good feeling when you go on these interviews anymore or be positive because you just never know what they're going to throw you. I mean, I'm literally just I have a bunch of stories that I hope can fit into their questions, you know, and it's just sort of torture. It's been really really hard for me, and I really need to find a job soon just for my sanity. I can't keep doing this. So if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I'm going to try to keep you guys informed on what goes on with this job situation because, you know, this job search needs to end quick. So, anyway, you guys take care. Bye.